Alright, finally we're going to return to solving quadratic equations. We prepared by learning how to work with I and learning how to work with the square root sign. Now I just want to do a quick review because you've already learned to solve quadratic equations, such as this one. You learned how to do b squared minus 8b equals 0. You learned how to do this by factoring. Remember what we did? We can factor a b out of each term, and the leftovers inside. B times b makes b squared, or b squared divided by b is b. Subtract 8b divided by b is 8. So it's that distributive property in reverse. And then remember the zero product property. There's multiplication going on between two quantities, and that means if we want the product to equal 0, that either this piece has to equal 0 or this piece has to equal 0. So our two answers were b equals 0 and b equals 8. And most quadratic equations do have two answers. The second power is the highest, and that's the cue that there will be two answers. Now you also learned how to solve quadratic equations like this one. Let's say it's x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. You learned how to solve simple ones like this by factoring them into two binomials. So if I factor this side of the equation, I think of a pair of numbers that multiplies to make 2. First let's get our x's in here. The x times x will give me the x squared when I FOIL. And then the pair of factors that make 2 when I multiply them. Let's see, it's going to have to be 2 and 1, right? When I multiply them, I get 2. When I add them, I get 3. So 2 and 1, both positive. Alright, and then we use that zero product property again because we want to know what value for x will make either one of these factors equal to 0. So when I multiply, I get a total of 0. So I write two little mini equations. Either x plus 2 equals 0 or x plus 1 equals 0. Either this piece equals 0 or that piece equals 0. Then I solve my two mini equations, and I get x equals negative 2, and I get x equals negative 1. So again, two answers to a quadratic equation. So that's review. If you wrote this down, wonderful. But where we're really going is to problems where we can't factor them. They don't factor out into nice binomials or a monomial and a binomial like on this problem. So what do we do when they don't factor? We have this magic equation called the quadratic equation. And before we go on to the next video, I want you to grab an index card. Stop the video, go grab an index card, and write the quadratic equation down on your index card, because it's just going to be handy to grab that card and use it as you're solving these quadratic equations. So x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over. Notice where that quotient starts. It starts right under the opposite of b, all over 2a. Now, remember how I said this? I said opposite of b plus or minus the square root of this whole expression, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. And this quadratic equation is only going to work when this quadratic formula is only going to work when the equation that you are solving is in this form, with all the terms on one side and 0 on the other side. So write this down also. Alright, I'm going to stop the video, and when we come back we'll solve our first quadratic equation.